Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, July the 29th, 2020. It is currently 1:24 p.m. Central Time. Now, you may not be aware of this, but you are currently listening to the number 3 trending podcast on Spotify here in the United States of America. You may not be aware of this, but you're also currently listening to the number 3 trending podcast on Spotify in Canada. And here is the big news. Are you ready? You are currently listening to the number 1 trending podcast in the Philippines. Now, I'm still trying to process this entire situation. I'm trying to process this information. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because it feels like I'm being pranked. It feels like this is a joke. It feels like this is not real because it makes absolutely no sense. Let me try to explain. This entire podcast, it kind of started kind of like a challenge, like a dare. Like, hey, why don't you create a podcast, monetize it, see if you can make a few dollars? And I'm like, well, maybe I can, maybe I can't. And the joke was, maybe you can make 75 cents. Maybe you can make 75 cents. And I'm like, okay, I'll build the podcast, record a few episodes, upload them. We'll kind of wait and see what happens. And maybe in a month or two, I'll just delete it. And it'll be like, well, you gave it a try. Okay. Now I want you to understand this. About 9 days ago, this podcast did not exist. We went from zero, obviously downloads or streams. We did not exist. And in 9 days, we're now the number 3 trending podcast in the United States of America, number 3 in Canada, and number 1 in the Philippines. What happened? Now, remember, we did this. We did this without any promotion. We did this without any social media presence at all. My daughter is currently busy creating an Instagram page, a Facebook page. We're trying to catch up. But when I saw the information today, I was like, how did this happen? I don't understand. Currently, here in the United States of America, we're getting beat out by Michelle Obama. So congratulations to her. But hey, we're going to catch up and we're going to pass you. Okay, come on. Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? Clearly, we're not going to pass Michelle Obama. That's obviously a joke. And clearly, here's what I think is going to happen. 24 hours from now, this podcast is going to fall off the cliff and we're going to fall down into the abyss of obscurity and we're going to go back to being irrelevant and nobody's going to know who we are. I don't even know how this happened, but all I can say, it's crazy. Thank you. I don't even know if we have return listeners. I don't even know who our audience is. I have had no one in our audience contact me. So I don't even know who the audience is. I don't even know what's going on, but I know this. If we're the number 3 trending podcast in the United States of America, number 3 in Canada, number 1 in the Philippines, all I can do is I really can't worry about how it happened. I can't even worry about if it's going to last. All I can do is turn on this microphone and talk about those things that I want to talk about. I'm not going to try to chase a formula because I don't have a formula. I don't even have a plan. I don't even have a strategy. I created this podcast so I could talk about what's currently on, what I'm watching on television, movies I'm watching, music I'm listening to. I'm just going to talk about the things that I want to talk about. Here's a little philosophical thought. We live in a world right now that is extremely divided. Everyone is arguing and fighting about everything from COVID-19, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, how real, how dangerous. Everyone's fighting. Politics, people are fighting. There's so much division and conflict and fighting and outrage and anger and frustration. It's like the whole country is at a boiling point. It's at a tipping point. It's like it's on fire. And I just wanted to go, hey, you know what? Let's stop that. And there's a lot of things in our world that we can just sit down and enjoy. Let's find joy in the simple things in life, and let's just talk about them, and not talk about them in a critical way, or let's just enjoy them. And I'm just talking about music, just talking about everything, and hopefully I'm doing so that, hey, you're hearing my excitement and my passion because I'm talking about what I want to talk about. So if that's the formula, that's the formula. We're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy. We're going to talk. and we're going to have a good time. And for this episode of the Currently On podcast, we're going to return to one of my favorite subjects, the subject of music. I've got some new music I want to tell you about. And here's my thought process. If we're the number 3 trending podcast, maybe we'll only be the number 3 trending podcast for the next 15 minutes. But if I've got 15 minutes and I've got a platform, then I'm going to try to bring some music to your attention that maybe you're not aware of. And if I can give this band some a little bit of attention, create a little bit of buzz, kind of create some anticipation for their upcoming release, then I'm going to use this platform to do that because I love music. And if I can help you discover some music that may be off your radar, then maybe I can put it on your radar and you will tune in. All right. But before we get to the band, before we get to the new album, before we get to the new single that you can stream today, let's dive in and let's get a little philosophical about music. And I want to approach this from 2 perspectives. All right. When it comes to music, I think there's 2 very important contexts that we need to consider. When we listen to music, we have our personal context. In other words, when you listen to music, and I'll use this as an analogy. Let's say back when you were in high school, or maybe you're still in high school. When you hear a song, no matter what that song may be about, you have a tendency to take that song and apply it to your context, right? Let me give you an example. This is a very dated example, but I think it'll make sense. Maybe it will make sense. If you're not familiar with the album, it may not make any sense, but just trust me, I'm going to do my best to explain it. When I was in high school, there was an album that came out. Kilroy Was Here by the band Styx. I know, very dated, I understand. Now that album had obviously its own context, something that it was trying to say. But for my context, when I listened to Kilroy Was Here by Styx, I could not remove it from the context of me growing up in a little small town called Buffalo Gap, Texas, population 303. I don't even know if we were at 300 back then. Buffalo Gap, Texas. Okay. I'm in West Texas in the 80s. Okay. If you've ever seen Footloose, you kind of get the idea, right? And there was a whole lot of talking about the evils of rock and roll, and churches in this area, in this part of the country, would hold these little one-night conferences about the evils of rock and roll, and they would play clips of the music and show the artwork and tell you stories about demons coming out of people's speakers when they listen to AC/DC, Hell's Bells, you name it. I mean, I know you think I'm crazy, but you may think I'm using hyperbole. But I'm telling you the truth. It was crazy. There were some towns where dances were banned. It was crazy. There was all these talk that Satanists were going to kidnap people. And even during some Halloweens, they either, maybe one Halloween or maybe 2, I can't remember. There were towns where they basically banned trick-or-treating because they were afraid kids were going to be kidnapped by Satanists for human sacrifices. And they all tied this to rock and roll music. And there was like, man, if you liked rock and roll and you liked rock music, you were it felt like everyone was against you. Now, again, sometimes your perception doesn't always equal reality. But when I was young, man, I felt like I was in the midst of this grand attack upon music, and I loved music. It was my life. It was my air, it was my water, it was my food, it was my existence. And it's like, why is everyone attacking my music? So when I listened to Kilroy Was Here by Styx, there were certain parts of that album that I interpreted in my context, like it was speaking to me about what I was dealing with and the things I was going through in this attempt to shut my music down, which was, I felt, an attack upon me personally and that I didn't fit in. I interpreted the album in my context. Now, there was things in that album that could relate to my context. The point is, I interpreted it in my context. And if you go back to high school and you listen to some of those songs, you interpreted those songs in light of your relationship or what you were feeling or what you were going through. And whether the lyrics really applied to it, you would listen to those lyrics and you would picture your situation in your mind. Your feelings would come through. You were placing yourself in that song and like it was about you. And it's crazy, but that's one of the powerful things about music. We take it from its context and we put it in our own personal context, what we're going through, our relationships, our difficulties, our hard times, whatever the case may be. Now, there is some music out there that we will take to try to help us escape maybe our feelings and our situations, and that's wonderful. But a lot of music, even maybe sometimes, even if it has a happy message and you're really not feeling happy, you'll still take those lyrics and somehow apply it to your situation to make you feel better. It's just we take music and we place it in our context, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It just sometimes we may be ignoring the context in which it was made. All right, so there is our personal context. All right, now with that personal context, I'm gonna add this to the personal context category. Sometimes the world, the nation, may be going through something, and it's hard, like a global pandemic, and it's hard not to hear something and apply it. Like we almost view the lyrics in light of what's happening in our world. Isolation, lockdown, economic upheaval, a divided country. And we may hear lyrics and apply it to our context, again, to our personal context, but the broader context of the world. So music, I'm not telling you anything that's unique. I mean, you just know this. Think of your favorite songs and try to figure out why it's your favorite. It probably connects to a certain situation that you were experiencing, and you were interpreting those lyrics in light of that. You were applying those lyrics to that, even though maybe they didn't necessarily apply or that was even necessarily the right interpretation. So I think we can understand that. There's context. Now, there's another context. An album, a song, is also written in the context of what the artist was experiencing or feeling. Now, it is true that sometimes a songwriter will simply create a character and tell a story, but I am of the belief that even if they've created a fictional character and a kind of a fictional narrative, I still think there's something of the artist emotion, something that's going on in their context that transfers over in some way, shape, or form. Something about that narrative, something about that story, even if they create a character and a fake story for the song, I think still something of them ends up there. It still somehow reflects a context of that songwriter, of that band, of that artist. I still think it's there. So there's these two contexts, personal and the artist context, your context and the artist context. Sometimes those two match up. Sometimes it's two completely separate feelings and ideas, but each, when they sing it or when we listen to it, we begin to see it and hear it from that perspective. I think we all can relate to that. We can all relate to that. And that's one of the most interesting things when someone tells you they love a song is to get beyond, well, I like the beat. I mean, there's some people who listen to music that way, but sometimes when you really start trying to find out why they like it, there's something they're connecting it to. And their brain, when they hear that song, the movie that is playing in their mind, and don't tell me I can't be the only one who does that. I hear a song and a movie starts playing in my mind. And sometimes, guess who's the starring character? Me. Guess who that song becomes about? Me. I somehow place me as the central part, when in reality it was written about either a fictional character or about someone else, and it contains their narrative, their feelings, and their emotions. That's the beautiful power of art, is there these two different contexts, the personal context and the context of the artist, all right? And I think that's very important. Now, I bring all of that up to get us to some new music, all right? To some new music, and I really, really hope that you will check this out, and I really, really hope that you will listen to the whole album when it comes out. I really do. All right, the name of the band, Slow Pulp. Slow Pulp. That's P-U-L-P. Slow Pulp. All right. Now, the name of their album is Moveys, M-O-V-E-Y-S, Moveys. If I am saying that wrong, I apologize to the band Slow Pulp. I apologize. Moveys. The album comes out in October. I'll give you more details here shortly. The name of the new song is Idaho. Idaho, which is currently streaming, currently on right now. I'm looking at it via Apple Music. I've also heard it. I was listening to, I don't know where the first place I heard it, I think was on, let me look here. Live X Live, the streaming service, Live X Live. They have a channel on there called Indie Now. I think it's called Indie Now. And that's when I first heard this track, Idaho by Slow Pulp, from their upcoming album, Moves. All right. Now, as soon as I heard the track begin, this is one of those situations. As soon as the track began, I was like, in fact, I had my headphones on and I was doing something else. And as soon as I heard the beginning of the track, I was like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. And then I think at the 7-second mark, 8-second mark is where it really kicks in. And we'll analyze it in greater detail in a minute. Once it kicked in, boom, I was hooked. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. And about midway through the song, I just had to stop the song on Live X Live, went to Apple Music, did a search, found it, added it to my library, and then I hit play on Apple Music so that I could read the lyrics along with it. I've probably listened to the song like 25 times, just over and over and over, and there's just something about it that really like, boom. There's something about the music. Lyrically, I can't really say I understand what it's about. I have some ideas, and we're going to talk about that, but I would strongly not right now, when I'm done talking, pull up, well, as long as you can still listen to me, pull up your favorite music streaming service. If you're listening to me on Spotify, that'll be very easy. Slow Pulp, pull up the song Idaho. Wait to play it until I am done, okay? Because I think I can offer some information, all right? So let's take a step back. Let's forget me. Let's forget my context. Let's forget the context of what's happening in our world, and let's go into the context of Slow Pulp themselves and find out what was happening, what was going on that ultimately led to this album. And let's get that context, and then we'll take that context. We'll take the context of what's happening in the world and my personal context, and then we'll put it all together to try to analyze this song, Idaho. Here's some basic information. Slow Pulp is a Chicago-based rock quartet. I would probably place them in the Chicago-based indie rock quartet. Maybe some people would disagree, but I think they definitely fall in the indie rock category. Now, we could possibly put some of their sounds under a subgenre of indie rock, but we won't get too technical right here. A Chicago-based indie rock quartet, Slow Pulp, have shared a new track entitled Idaho, all right, alongside details of their debut album, Moves, Moveys. I'll keep giving you the name of the album, Moveys. I feel like I wish I was more confident in saying the name of the album right, because I don't want to let the band down. I want to make sure they get promoted correctly. So if the band hears this, I apologize. Slow Pulp's debut album, and remember, this is going to be their debut album, which is always awesome to be listening to, Now, this band did have an EP released last year, I believe it was 2019, that was well received, critically received a lot of critical praise. But right now, we're just going to focus on this song and the album that's coming. The album will be released on October the 5th. I think I've seen a couple of different dates, but I believe October the 5th is correct. Just know in October, Slow Pulp's going to be releasing a new album called Moves. According to a press release, the songs on this forthcoming album are a testament to hard-fought personal growth. Now, please note that. That's establishing the context, the band, where these songs fit in the context of what the band was going through. A hard-fought personal growth. Keep that in mind. Now, Slow Pulp actually had a whole other album in the can, all right, in other words, ready to go, at one point. They had another album completely ready to go at one point, but they scrapped it and started over last year. And here's why they started over. When singer-guitarist Emily Massey, Massey, was diagnosed with Lyme disease and chronic mono. Okay, well, that's not a pleasant experience. And hopefully she's completely better now, and hopefully things are going well for her. She's an amazing singer, and the guitar work on this song, Idaho, I really love. So I hope everything's going well, and hopefully she can move forward to have a long and successful career, her and the entire band. As they were finishing up, her parents were involved in a severe car crash. So please note, she's got her own physical situation. While the physical situation is happening, her parents are involved in a severe car crash. And then about a week later, the COVID-19 pandemic essentially shut down America. So anyone who romanticizes the idea of great art from turmoil and difficulty will have a lot to appreciate here. Now, that context, I want you to just realize that context sounds like, this is the way I would describe that context: pain and confusion. All right? A little bit of chaotic confusion, especially if you're trying to get ready to release a debut album and all of a sudden everything gets locked down. I know a lot of the music industry was like, wait, do we release? Do we not release? What's our strategy? If we release it, we can't tour it. If we can't tour it, oh no, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I don't even know if this release was pushed back to October. To be honest, I wish they would just release the album now. I know a lot of the artists are out there trying to strategize when to release it, to try to figure out when they can go on tour. And I understand it. I understand artists make most of their money touring than they do from streaming. But man, during a time where the world is in such a mess, I just wish I think we need art. We need good art that we can draw us in to help us escape everything going on, or to navigate what's going on through the context of these songs, books, movies, TV shows. I think, and we're so divided. It's wonderful when we can come together and be united around a piece of art, even though we may have different ideas and ideologies and come from different backgrounds, that we can tune into an album or a movie or a TV show and forget all of that for a few minutes. I think we need good art right now more than ever to help us in some ways escape, or to help us navigate it by processing what we're going through the context of these songs. But we've already talked about that. Let's continue. Idaho. Here's another, and I've got just a lot of different clips from different articles. Idaho suggests that Slow Pulp are indeed operating at a high level right now. Okay, look, I will say they're operating at a freaking high level right now, crazy high level right now, because man, it's an amazing song. The band began working on Moves while on tour with Alex G, and you can hear traces of his skewed indie pop in this song's layers of guitar and lightly radioactive vocal processing. This is a smoother and more emotionally direct take on that sound, though one that will likely appeal to fans of thoughtful indie rock balladeers like Phoebe Bridges and Soccer Mommy. Now, Soccer Mommy's last album, really, 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 really good. Maybe it has a Phoebe Bridges, Soccer Mommy. I guess you can draw a correlation here. I just think there's something. I mean, I haven't heard the whole album Mauve, so I don't know where to put it. I just think the song Idaho has a kind of its own. I don't know. I don't know if I would connect it with that. You can draw your own conclusions. It finds Massey exploring the road-weary disorientation that caused someone in the band to mistake a gig at Colorado College for an entirely different state. All right. So I guess they were on the road. There was a little bit of a road-weary disorientation. Now keep that in mind. Disorientation. I like that word. Disorientation. Chaos, confusion, all of that seems to describe the emotion, the vibe that comes through in the song Idaho. But let me give you the track listing for Moves. They have 10 tracks. I really like that. I think in 2020, I know the thing to do, and I know it helps with streaming numbers, is to have 18 tracks, 16 tracks, 20 tracks. The more tracks, well, then you get more streams for, all of those tracks. But I think in some ways, if you're adding tracks just to help your streaming numbers, that's a good business decision. But from an especially if the album itself, I know sometimes some albums are just a string of individual singles, but if the album itself is supposed to capture an emotion, a feeling, a narrative, like you want the album to be a one piece of work as an album, not as individual songs, then I think you need a shorter album. Now, I'm not saying you can't always do that. Obviously, you got Pink Floyd, The Wall. Sometimes you can go a double album length and tell an entire story, an entire narrative. But I think sometimes shorter captures it in a better way. I think sometimes the longer it goes, it's harder to maintain continuity and unity in the narrative and what you're trying to get across. Not always, but in some cases. So I'm kind of excited that there's only 10 tracks on this. I'm really excited. Maybe they're going to add more, but I think it's interesting. Here are the tracks here. Number 1, New Horse. Number 2, Trade It. Number 3, Idaho, which is the song you need to listen to today. Number 4, Track. This number 4 track. Number 5, At It Again. Number 6, Channel 2. Number 7, Whispers in the Outfield. Now, I like that. Number 8, Falling Apart. Like that. Number 9, Montana. So we have Idaho and Montana. That's interesting. And number 10, Mauve. And again, if I'm saying that incorrectly, I apologize. So the title track, I guess, would be the last track. Idaho is the first single, and they picked a great one. They picked a great one because it is a great song. So I'm going to jump in. Now, remember, I spent all of that time talking about context, and I think this is a song where an emotional context, an emotional feeling, the context, remember that context the artist was going through, all of that chaos, all of road disorientation where someone in the band, they get the wrong state that they're even in, the disorientation of being on the road, disorientation that comes from life when you've got physical sickness, someone in your family is injured, the whole world is locking down because of a pandemic, all of the disorientation from that. That really, it's hard for me to listen to Idaho and not hear it in that context. And at the same time, it's hard for me to listen to Idaho and not place it in the context in a world that seems to be on fire and a world that seems to be torn apart. Let me go through this. I'm going to pull up the song. Now, obviously, I cannot play it because of copyright rules, and so I don't want to violate any copyright rules. So, Slow Pulp, I'm not going to violate any copyright rules. All right, here's okay. I'm gonna try to describe the song this way. First, I'm going to break the song down into its intro and its outro, all right? The introduction and the way it ends, because I think it's brilliant, all right? Now remember, the context for the artist, this seems to be this disorientation, personal chaos, confusion, pain, all the craziness happening. And the song and the first 5-6 seconds is a lot of different sounds from different instruments, almost like if you've ever seen a band getting ready, they're just sitting there, they're not really ready to play yet, and someone may be hitting the drums, another one may be playing a couple of chords on the guitar, just kind of little, I hate to say, almost a sense of a little chaotic, just a lot of sound. And it does that for I think 4 or 5 seconds, maybe 6 seconds. I mean, I wish we could play it. And it's almost like this little kind of chaotic, and then boom, it kicks in. And once it kicks in, very guitar driven. I love it. Okay, but before we get into that, okay, so we've got this little beginning introduction, and then I love the outro. The lyrics end, and they have kind of an extended, maybe I don't know. I don't have the time in front of me. Maybe 30 seconds, 20 seconds of music, maybe even 40 seconds of music to end the song, which I love because it kind of lets you process the feeling the lyrics give you through this kind of musical outro. But then by the time you get to the very end of the song, you're back to this kind of chaotic sound, like these different sounds that kind of, distorted, kind of chaotic sound to end it out with. Now, I don't know if it flows right into the next track on the album. I'm assuming it does, which will be interesting to see how they build from how this song would connect to the next song on the album. But it's kind of the beginning and the end is kind of a little bit of chaos, which I think captures the emotion, because as I listen to the song, I feel that there is this, so we got the intro and the outro is a little bit of chaos, this feeling of disorientation, confusion, which captures the context the artist was in, but it really kind of captures the context in which we live in right now. Now, here's what I found interesting in the way the music is going. In the rest of the song, you've got this very, very guitar driven that how can I describe it? I feel like it's very rooted. It's right there. You can't escape it. It's catchy. I love it. But there's these other sounds that are like the guitar part really kind of roots you to the ground, but there's this other elements of the song that seem very spacey, almost like they're trying to let you float away. But the guitar-driven part keeps you driven in. So musically, it's almost like these conflicting, contrasting ideas. Like one is like stay rooted here, the other one is like float away. And it's like this, but they fit together perfectly. They're not disjointed. There's not disunity in it or discord. They're really like these two ideas present in the song. And it's like, okay, I'm rooted here, but there's this part to go, almost like this conflicting emotion, like two conflicting emotions at the same time in the song, but done so in a unified way. If that makes any sense, you'll have to listen to it. If you have a good pair of headphones, really listen to it, and you'll kind of hear these two elements, both present at the same time, which shows maybe a discord, a disorientation, a confusion right now. And then when you get to the lyrics here are hard for me to wrap my mind around, because they almost feel like, in one way, when you're going through a bunch of stuff, you grab a notebook or a journal and you just start writing down different words, different phrases, different thoughts, and you complete the page, and they may not all be, they're not, all those individual parts are not written in a way to be a unified whole, but to the words express an emotion that goes beyond the words. It's almost like these words, I believe, are capturing an emotion that the words don't really convey, because there's something deeper behind them. So I'm going to read through the lyrics, and you'll see what I mean. And to me, I love the way it begins, because you start the song with that little bit of chaotic sound, then the music kicks in, and the first lyrics you hear, I hate that sound. Now, is that a reference? Like, is that a reference to the making of the song? Like, what sound is being expressed that they hate? It's like, I hate that sound. And listen, it almost feels like an emotion. And I know it just says, I hate that sound. And you're like, well, what does that mean? When I hear it, it almost like is a feeling of, if you've ever tried to produce anything, a podcast, if you try to write a paper, and you've been working on it, and you look at everything you've done, you just like, I hate that. That's so unoriginal. That's so uninspired. That's so frivolous. That's so meaningless. It's almost like this, I hate that sound. Like the singer is sitting there. She's sitting there and she's listening to what the band is doing, and she goes, I hate that sound. And it's like, it captures kind of a despondent melancholy and a little bit. I hate that sound. They've all been used by now. That's almost a sense of vanity, and vanity, and in a sense, I'm using that term like it's meaningless. Borrowing from, and I stated this in another song that I analyzed, borrowing kind of the idea captured in the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, where you have the king trying to find out what the purpose of life is, and he begins the book by saying, meaningless, vanity of vanities, vain, it's all meaningless. I hate that sound. They've all been used by now. My doubts too loud. Now, doubts about what? Doubts about, this is their debut album. And again, I have no idea what this song is about, in the sense that I have not heard from the artist. I would love to hear and sometimes the artist doesn't like to tell you, because maybe these lyrics are just, there's something behind the lyrics, and the lyrics doesn't really tell the whole story. But I like just this progression of thought here. I hate that sound. They've all been used by now. All the sounds have been used. We're trying to create something, and this is their debut album. They've all been, my doubts are too loud. Doubts about what they're creating, doubts about the creative process, doubts about the direction the music is going, or is this about something in life? I hate that sound. It's all been used by now. There's a futility feeling of life, or is this dealing with the music? I don't know. My doubts too loud. Now, that's when your doubt in life gets so loud that you cannot hear anything else other than your doubts. Yeah, that's a bad place to be in. But I love that the next line is interesting. But its beauty I turned down. Is that referring to the beauty of the sound that she's expressing hate for? That her doubt got so in the way that she could not hear, or I don't know who the songwriters is on the song. I'm saying she because the lead vocalist. But whomever the songwriter is, I hate that sound. They've all been used now. My doubts are too loud, but it's beauty I turned down. The beauty is what was turned down because of the doubt. Sometimes we can't see the beauty in something we're doing. We can't see the beauty in it because our mind is filled with doubt, or we're kind of conflicted. Like I feel the music is this conflicted. There's this, the music pulls you in and roots you, but there's this ethereal aspect that wants to float away. And sometimes we have these doubts about something and we turn the beauty of something. We turn the beauty of what's in front of us. We miss out on sometimes the simplicity, the beauty of simplicity because of our doubts. And then we turn down the beauty of it. I think that's, or is there, yeah, there's a lot of different ways we could work on that. I kept on holding out for the downside before I knew why. I don't think I can win. I don't think I can win my pride on time. I kept holding out for the downside before I knew why. I don't think I can win my pride on time. That's an interesting lyric. And then I'm losing all the while. I'm losing all the while. Now, this clearly captures a very despondent kind of feeling. I'm losing all the while. While all these other things are going on, processing all of these thoughts, I'm losing all the while. I'm losing all the while. She's losing something, or is she losing, just feeling like she's losing in life? What is she losing? But we can all understand that feeling of losing. And right now in the world, it may feel like we're all losing. I'll keep you out. My body knows me now. I'll try to be without. Sleep on your shoulder for now. I'll keep on holding out for the downside. Before I knew why, I don't think I can win your side on time. I'm losing all the while. I'm losing all the while. So we begin the lyrics with, I hate that sound, and we end them with, I'm losing all the while. Now, when we hate the sound and we don't appreciate the beauty in it, we don't see, we miss out what's there. Do we end up losing in the end? If our doubts are too loud, if we turn down the beauty, if we struggle with all of this, it's so, I'm going to say this. Now, for the band, they may feel differently. I'm going to say it's so vague that it captures a lot. And so the music is what has me just, I love the music. The lyrics, I haven't, like, the more I listen to it, my mind will kind of go one direction or another direction. But when I have the context that the band was going through, this, physical illness, car wreck with parents being injured, everything being closed down because of COVID-19. You're trying to make a debut album. You have a debut album ready to go, but all the chaos, a time of personal growth. I think it's capturing something going on with them. How we translate that over to us, it's hard not to hear it in light of what's happening in our world. I think a lot of people feel like we're losing all the while. I think we all feel like that. I think we all feel like, I hate that sound of everything happening in our world. It's all been used before. We're tired of hearing it. But I think there's a tendency then, because we become despondent, we turn the beauty down, and then we can't see the beauty in anything, which will lead us to continuing to lose all the while. There you have it. I could probably say more, but I have already gone on for 39 minutes. So I'm going to stop right there. The name of the song, Idaho, by Slow Pulp, from their upcoming release, Mauvais. hopefully I'm saying it correctly, which will be released, I think, October 5th. For some reason, I thought another news report said October 9th. Somewhere in October, I am hoping they get a lot of attention and a lot of buzz. Start streaming Idaho over and 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 over again. That's where streaming services will see all of the attention it's getting, and then they'll give the album a more prominent place on their Discovery playlist and other places where they promote it. And Beats One, Apple Music, Beats One. Come on now. Jump all over this. Let's be promoting this, and let's get Slow Pulp on Beats One Radio, and let's make them the up next artist for August. Let's make Slow Pulp or September. Let's go with September. The album comes out in October. Let's make them the up next artist for September on Apple Music. That's what we need to do. Get them in the studio. Let them do a session for Apple Music. Do a little mini documentary on them, and let's get them promoted, and let's make them the next big thing. All right, there you have it. That concludes this episode of the Currently On podcast. We were number 3 trending on Spotify as the top trending podcast. I don't know if we still are, but we're going to do what we can to talk about what's happening and help you discover new music, new things to watch, and just have a good time. So as I end this episode, I've ended a lot of them this way. Hey, go out there and enjoy life, even the small things, because life is short.